If we're talking about leadership and work-life balance, who better to comment than Marissa Mayer, former CEO of Yahoo? She said burnout is about resentment. Preventing it is about knowing yourself well enough to know what it is you're giving up that makes you resentful. Well, after a series of data breaches, a mass exodus of talent, countless profiles on worker dissatisfaction, and even evasion of federal labor laws, the board forced Mayer out, citing her as one of Yahoo's worst leaders in the history of the company. Why is this important? It shows that leaders are, despite what we believe and what we hear, humans with faults and shortcomings and blind sides. We talk a good game in the boardroom, in the morning meetings, at the press conference, but what happens when we go back to the captain's chair? Do we hold ourselves accountable for all the hubris and hot air we heave on humanity? Do we lead by example? Do we believe what we say? It's what we're talking about today on Lawsome. Leaders and work-life balance. How can we create thriving work environments? Why should we start talking about work-life choice? And how can leaders help their staff and themselves achieve it? Let's go.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by Consultwebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that asks to be patted down at the airports, not for security, but for companionship. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in personal and professional developments. I am Jake Sanders, the Sultan of Swing, and with me is the alley cat of AdWords, Paul Julius. Paul, what have you dragged in for us today?
It's, I don't know, but it tastes like chicken.
Oh, it does. Ooh, I just put a little pepper, a little salt, a little dipping sauce.
It's all good, man.
What's on the show, Turdar?
On the show today, we talk about the irony of work-life balance for leaders. We interview entrepreneur, author, and leadership guru Chris LoCurto on what leaders in law need to focus on. And we put Chris on the hot bench for 5 questions that used to be 10 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The article today is from the Harvard Business Review. It's Help Your Team Achieve Work-Life Balance Even When You Can't by Rebecca Zucker. Wow. Let me give you a brief synopsis. You block time on your calendar for a yoga class, lunch with a friend, or even a tech Shabbat. But how often do you cancel it due to what seems a more urgent work demand? Recent research from Boston University shows that with the unrelenting pace and volume of work, setting and keeping boundaries has never been more challenging or more important. As a leader, you have an opportunity to model behavior in a meaningful way and facilitate appropriate boundary setting for your team members and your organization's employees. This is necessary even if setting and keeping boundaries is an area you struggle with yourself. Paul.
Jake.
She gives us 6 ways to fix it. Do you want to go over those real fast?
Sure. 6 ways to fix it. Am I like the list reader for the show?
Well, you're great at lists.
That's my jam.
When I start looking at lists, I get skittish. I'm list skittish.
He can read enumerated sentences.
He's great.
Number 1, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Number 2, hire enough staff. Take turns taking time off. Number 3, remind people of human limitations. Mm-hmm. Number 4, redistribute work evenly. Managers underestimate time spent on projects. Number 5, model behavior of people keeping boundaries. And 6, question your assumptions about how work gets done. You think you have to work around the clock or staff should be there till 5. Focus on assessing performance from effort and results. So, Jake.
Yeah, what?
First of all, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, geez, how many times have we blocked off time for tech Shabbats? I mean, like, it's just Shabbat after Shabbat, like
Shabbat after right? Shabbat after Jeez. Shabbat.
Seriously. So, what's your hot take? What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's sad personally because the headline says it all. Like, help your team when you can't even help yourself. This advice is sort of confusing. Because if you can't achieve that work-life balance as a leader, what incentives are there for you to keep going into the fire? I can just see how a lot of these advice columns end up being frustrating and confusing. And it probably leads to a lot of managers experiencing what the large majority of the workforce in America is is that they just don't like their jobs. Interestingly enough, I came across an article from Chris Smith from the American Management Association, and he was talking about the difference between work-life balance and work-life choice. He thinks balance varies by individual because balance requires persons to know what they want from work and from life. And work-life choice is a belief that the employer should kind of give their staff the ability to turn up and down their priorities, trust them and give them autonomy. But it requires, once again, a lot of these things that we give to time, productivity, saving things, legal tech, delegating work. You have to do a lot of work in the front, set good expectations, and then believe in the systems that you've set up. But if you can't define what help you need, if you can't define why you want to balance your life or what it is about your life that compels you to work or what it is about your work that compels you to live your life, you got a lot of questions to, drill into. So I think it's interesting because it's a choice. I thought that was kind of an interesting take on this.
And I like that idea of autonomy, but I think you make a great point that without a solid beacon, if you don't build that lighthouse that people are going to be able to look to, then everybody's just going to be sailing off in their own direction. What I kind of got out of this is it struck me like a lot of these kind of articles about what to do, to help the poor harried leader, redistribute work more evenly, set and keep your own boundaries, debunk your own limiting beliefs and assumptions. And it gives a little bit of a paragraph, but it doesn't give you any concrete advice on how to do that. So you just leave feeling it's the same confusion you felt before. Like you said, there's no answers here. There's things like, you should do this. Okay, but how do I do that? If I knew how, I wouldn't be reading this article.
Well, and worse, if you just read this article and went to your team and said, hey, guys, it's a marathon, not a sprint, okay? And let's take time, and I need to redistribute this stuff. Sometimes work happens differently. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And then you show up tomorrow and you're complaining that somebody didn't restock the paper, and you're like, are you the manager? Shouldn't you be focusing on something else? That's why Chris has some really amazing, actionable tips, completely free from hyperbole. And he really kind of lays out a case for you to find out what that means, what life means, where your value is, where your worth is. I mean, he really, really unpacks this stuff in a way that isn't just another hot take. It really feels like you can make some headway if you listen to what he's, dropping down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's check it out.
Let's go.
Stay tuned as we continue on a very special episode of Lawsome.
We really have a relationship with Consultwebs that goes beyond simple business-to-business marketing. We have grown up with them as a company. They were there for us when we started. We were there for them when they started.
So I think that we were Consultwebs' first personal injury client 15 or 16 years ago.
I've been working with them directly for 10 years now, and they've always been a fantastic partner.
It's vitally important to us that when somebody says you should hire Bellick & Fox, and they go to the Bellick & Fox website, they're going to go beyond the website and contact us.
They understand storytelling, they understand technology, they understand a website isn't just text on a page, it's how you create an expectation for what that means to work with us.
When we get a case, they are very excited in a really genuine way that I think reflects the fact that they sort of view their success tied to ours. So that's why we've continued to use them.
I've never had anything but praise for how they've been able to market our website.
Go to consultwebs.com to learn more.
And now for a Lawsome interview.
Chris LoCurto is an accomplished entrepreneur, speaker, coach, and leader of leaders, helping businesses and individuals realize and maximize their personal and professional potential. Chris owns and leads the Poimain Group, LLC, a life and leadership coaching business serving individuals and businesses in the U.S. and around the world. Chris and his team employ coaching vehicles, which include strategic business planning, one-on-one leadership coaching, mastermind groups, life coaching, live events, and more. We are delighted that Chris has cleared the books for us to talk leadership on Lawsome today. Chris, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. You guys make me sound amazing. So that's a great bio.
Well, it's all true, and if it isn't, we'll have to talk about that at the end of the podcast. So I think we made some of that up.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it sounds great. I'm really impressed with myself right now. It's an honor to be on the show, guys. I'm glad you guys are having me on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. So you speak all over the world. You lead mastermind groups, and you talk to thousands of people in leadership roles over the course of many years. There has to be some common thread that ties that all together. So as far as common barriers you see preventing leaders from separating work life from their family and home life, what are some of the common threads that you've experienced in your years of leadership coaching?
So what answers you're going to get from me are probably going to be a little surprising. I've been doing this for decades, and the reason why we work in both business and life is because they're so tied together, and people do not realize just how much they are tied together. So I will tell you the number one common thread that I see, period, by far, is where people get their worth. When you look at being a leader, so many folks, I'm always, telling people from the stage, if you believe that you're a leader, do yourself a favor, turn around. If nobody's following you, then you're not actually leading anyone. The concept is that I'm leading people to a place, to something where they've never been before, to growth, to accomplishment that's better. But what happens is that we tend to get so much of our worth from our title. We get so much of our worth by the things that we accomplish in a day. We've got one of our top lesson, the first lesson that we push, and we've got in our mastermind groups, accountability groups, the first thing that we push is called killing the leadership crazy cycle. Because leaders get in this ridiculous, crazy cycle where they're overwhelmed, they're overworked, they're so focused on getting a ton of things done in a day, and they're actually barely leading anyone, because so much of their worth is coming from the accomplishments, not making people great. We have a saying around here: it's your job as a leader to make people successful, not the other way around. So for me, when I see leaders struggling, and the common thread that I see is the struggle always comes from, how do I feel good about myself? How do I make sure that I'm great? How do I make sure that people think I'm great? Therefore, when they look at team members or being a leader, their focus is on, hey, you need to accomplish a ton, instead of making them successful. So when you help leaders actually lead people, then by default, they become incredibly successful. Does all that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I'm glad that it's reductive and it's not a 10-point plan or all of those. I don't have to buy a supplement from you, I'm super happy because some people are like, I'm taking all these pills and I'm doing this 10-point program. And really it is that kind of reductive question, because in the research for this episode, the work-life balance comes not from work, but from life and how you kind of perceive that. So that's really brilliant. So I wanted to kind of get in towards hustle shaming, the Gary Vaynerchuk's, Tony Robbins, kind of those kind of guys. For me, I think there is something great and motivational and inspirational about those guys, but there's something that may be questing for the next level life that might create imbalances in people's lives. How do you help leaders turn that striving into thriving?
So there's a reason why they are as big as they are. And that's because and listen, I don't know Gary, I don't know Tony. They've helped a ton of people, but there's a reason why they're as big as they are, is because they're motivational. One of the things that I always tell people when they come to my events, you're never going to get the motivational speaker from me. My goal is not to motivate you so you're excited for the next 30 days. My goal is to help you have the practical tools that you need right now to change the things in your life. So the hustle concept is something that it just really drives me nuts, because it's this concept that if you just hustle, you're going to be Gary. If you just hustle, you're going to be Tony. You're going to be a billionaire. And it's not true. The hustle isn't the issue. Knowing what's holding you back is the issue. Knowing the right things to do is the issue. But there is so much money being made on this. Well, if you're not hustling, that's the reason why you're failing. Well, that's not absolutely true. There's a ton of people hustling like crazy and working crazy hours and cutting off family and doing all kinds of stuff, but they're not moving in the right direction. So it actually is not helping them, it's hurting them. So for me, the balance when it comes to the concept of go after the hustle, what is the hustle? The hustle, if you just look at it from perspective's sake, is bust your butt. Just go work hard. But if you're not focused on the right things, if you're not focused in the right areas, then you're spending a ton of time spinning your wheels. The other side of that, when it comes to the life balance, is if you do not have balance in your life. Now, I'm not saying that there is an actual one-for-one balance, because there just isn't.
Right.
There's never going to be. That doesn't exist. Those of us that have been doing this a long time all understand when we say balance, what we're saying is that you're balancing things, that you're actually getting time with your family, that you're actually getting times with your friends. It's a very strong belief system. I'm a Christian, and the community aspect is a huge thing. If you don't spend time with community, God set us up to spend time with community, then what happens is you become isolated and you get stuck in your own thoughts. If you're not spending time being the parent or the spouse that you're supposed to be, it doesn't matter how much time you spend in work. What's going to happen is you're going to end up having your work drive your life and lose the rest of your personal life. So for me, I do not have a problem with time periods. There are times that I have worked, till 10 o'clock every single night, all day Sunday and all day Saturday. And sometimes I was even working Sunday afternoons to try and build something and make something happen. But once I got it going, I started filling in those spots that I was, spending so much time busting it with talented people so I could have my life back. So I'm all about spurts. I'm all about, let's do this for a time period, but understand none of us are going to get to heaven and God's going to go, I'm so impressed with your bottom line.
You can't take it with you. Yeah.
you can, not only can you not take it with you, but there is nothing that you can obtain on this life. If you're a Christian, if you're a believer like me, there's nothing that you can obtain in this life that's even going to amount to the next one. So this concept that it's got to be this insane hustle to make as much as I possibly can. I have friends. I have one friend who's trying to become a billionaire. I love him to death, but it's just not an important focus to me. Changing lives is an incredible focus for me.
Yeah.
So it sounds like kind of what we're talking about here isn't necessarily work-life balance, but there's also a concept of kind of work-life separation. Like if you can be like, okay, I'm balanced, but if I go home and I'm sitting at the dinner table thinking about the emails I have to answer, and I'm not engaged with my family as much as I engage with my work, that's not really a good thing either, is it?
In my world, it's just not. I mean, that's one of the things that we teach entrepreneurs and leaders is that killing the leadership crazy cycle, for example. One of the things we talk about is close out your day. Now, as a business owner, there's always going to be interruptions. However, a mistake that people make is that they just walk out of the door. They work. They're working on all these accomplishments. And then they're just like, it's time to go home. And they walk out the door. They go home and they have 17 more emails. They have all these thoughts that are ruling their brain at the time because they didn't close out their day. So for me, I've always had a time period when needed where I usually put like a half hour. It's usually not more than that, where I stop at the end of the day, even if I'm not done. So in other words, let's say at 4:30 to 5, and it just depends. My life is a lot different than most people working 8 to 5. I don't have an 8 to 5. So I might be leading events. I might be traveling. I might be doing something. So the 4:30 to 5 doesn't always work with me. So I have to find other times that work. But if you just take a regular week, if you set 4:30 to 5 to do a brain dump. Now, you got to be doing something called a to-do list. And a lot of people do not do this. I'm not talking about the basics of to-do list. I'm talking about controlling your sets of time. which people completely miss out on how important this is and how good this is for you, because it's going to help you to stay in control of what you spend your time on. But at the end of the day, do an incredible brain dump. What's all the stuff I'm working on? What got done today? What needs to get adjusted? And reprioritize your day for tomorrow and get everything out of your brain right now on what you've been focusing on. When you do this, and by the way, I got this from, oh geez, am I going to remember the name of the book? It was The Artist's Way. That's what it was.
Oh,
A
good
book that somebody told me about like 10 years ago or so. And it's for artists. And so I've applied that in my stuff, and I was like, wow, this really absolutely works. I dump all that information out, because what happens is if I don't get it out of my mind, then it will control my mind all night long. And then I'm sending myself emails at the dinner table and, coming up with new ideas. When I get it out on paper, the ideas come out. When I set my schedule for tomorrow, I know what tomorrow looks like. When I step in the door, I don't spend 15, 30 minutes trying to figure out what I'm doing. I'm knocking things out. Therefore, when I'm at the dinner table with my spouse and my kids, I'm able to focus on them. My mind isn't controlling, my time and my focus and keeping it away from them by creating new emails in my brain and remembering the things that I didn't get done. So for me, that is such an important piece. Now, with that being said, I don't work until 5 o'clock. I sometimes I do, which is nice, but there are times that, I'm going to blow right past that. As long as I get that stuff out, I'm still setting up tomorrow. So even if I continue to work a little bit longer, it doesn't really matter. I've got a bunch of stuff out of my brain. I've got tomorrow set up. So when I come in tomorrow, I tackle the most important things I can do. And that gives me the freedom at nighttime to not be so, bogged down with work.
Nice. I know. Jake and I both, before we kind of fell into what we're doing now, we both were in a little bit more direct leadership roles. And I know for myself, that was actually on my calendar, was the last half hour of the day.
Oh,
was just
good.
unload. But to talk a little bit more about, some of the things that we experienced, they say that heavy's the head that wears the crown, and it can be isolating. Leadership can be isolating with, the day-to-day concerns and anxieties of a CEO don't necessarily mirror the concerns of the staff, and even lesser than CEOs, directors, team leads, whatever. You have different kind of problems than the rest of the team does. So what are your thoughts for leaders on how to deal with that?
We are huge. We have a program here. It's called Next Level Mastermind. We have the term mastermind because that's the public facing term, because that's intriguing to people. It's an accountability group. And what I mean by that is, when you are a leader, when you are a business owner, it is rare that you have people in your inner circle or close life that do the same thing that you do. It's rare that somebody can understand what you're experiencing in a day. So you go home, chances are your spouse isn't running another business. It's very rare that you find two spouses running businesses. It's very rare that you find two spouses leading businesses. You go and spend time with your best friend, they're probably not doing that. So the advice, the input that you get usually is crap. It's not, they don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. And so one of the things that I've done for a long time is bring leaders and bring business owners together to be with people and hold them accountable. Now, when I say the term accountable, if you're like me and you come from a church background, that's a cuss word, because accountability is you beat somebody over the head with the Bible and tell them what, all the things that they're doing wrong and judge the living daylights out of them. That is not accountability. We're actually taking the word back, because accountability is actually stepping in and helping and holding people's arms up when they're struggling and being there for the things when they don't have the answer and being able to look at it from an outside perspective. And so we put these leaders and businesses, leaders and business owners together, and they are constantly pushing each other. The great thing, and they come here 4 times a year and meet. We all come together for small events. The great thing is, when you put people together that actually understand what it's like to walk in your shoes, the isolation goes away. You're not stuck going, I'm the only person dealing with this. And which is hilarious. What we do at quarterly retreats at our office and our event space. And whenever we have new groups come in, I'll always ask the question, how many people in here think that you're the only one going through what you're going through? And you just see all these hands go up. and then all the veterans that are in here just laugh and they clap. And it's like, hey, all the people laughing thought the same exact thing when they came in the door. You're not alone. You're not the only one dealing with the junk that you're dealing with. And you're not the only one who thinks that you're a fake. Many leaders and business owners think that they're a fraud. I'm not, I'm putting out this front, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And the truth is, when you get around people who are struggling through the same stuff, what happens is the old saying, a rising tide raises all ships. Everybody gets in, holds each other accountable. Hey, why are you making that decision over there? What have you thought about this? Have you checked this thing out? Here's what I did when I went through that. And it causes you to remove the isolation, but be focused with people who know what they're talking about because they're walking in the same shoes that you are.
Man, well, it seems like how group therapy is more can be more beneficial than single one-on-one therapeutic sessions, because you get to kind of see other people who are struggling. And then you say, well, because everyone feels that it's just an inborn struggle and no one can understand. So that's a brilliant suggestion. And I had a specific question for lawyers, because lawyers kind of have that same feeling that like no one can do it like me, or I have a specific set of skills and I can't necessarily get help with some of my work. So I think that, lawyers face two different realities. They have administrative work, the process stuff, and then they have advisory work, is what they went to school for, to be a lawyer. So do you have any recommendations with regards to delegation and finding ways that leaders or people in leadership roles can lighten the load and spread it around, in their office?
Yeah. One of the things, because we have lawyers in our program, one of the things that we tell people is, don't focus, definitely do the industry specific stuff that you need to do.
Right.
But when it comes to running a business or leading, now, most people that become business owners can't stand the thought of accountability because they don't want somebody telling them what to do, because they have this bad idea of it, right?
Right.
They think that, I don't need to go get in a bunch of other people like me because I don't need people telling me what to do. You're thoroughly confused. You had a bad leader. You had maybe many bad leaders. And that's why a lot of them go after their own thing. When it comes to running the business, now I don't want to get advice from people. I don't want to. And so they try and do it themselves. And lawyers, unfortunately, they're not taught how to run a business by a leadership standpoint. So they jump into it. They know how to lawyer. They know how to argue. They know how to present. They know how to do everything that comes with lawyering. But what happens is they end up bogging themselves down with insane amounts of work because they don't trust other people to do it. And they've never been taught how to do what we call delegate properly. There are proper ways of getting stuff off of your plate. So again, one of the things we call love, hate, delegate, which is, it's a whole process. And we don't have enough time for me to go through everything, but it's a whole process of sitting down and going, what should I be focusing on? What should I not be focusing on? And how do I get things off of my plate to people who can do it better than me? Now, leaders and business owners always miss this concept. You have to stop and take a look at what your time costs. So in other words, when I was a kid, I changed the oil in my truck. When I moved across country from California to Tennessee, I rebuilt an engine and put it in my pickup truck and drove across country. Now, that was almost 30 years ago, but I was able to do stuff like that. When I moved out here, we didn't have to really worry about mowing lawns out there because there wasn't a whole lot of grass. But out here, grass grows like crazy, right? It's an inch a minute. And so the first time I paid somebody to mow my lawn, I felt terrible. I was like, this just doesn't feel right. The first time I paid somebody, to change the oil in my car, I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. But here's what somebody sat me down decades ago, and he actually had gone through it himself. And he goes, Chris, he said, think of how much money you're paying for that person to mow your lawn. compared to the time that you can either continue to work or focus on something else in your personal life. Find the balance. Find what's right. So in other words, if I can pay somebody else to do the things, I can spend more time on the things that are worth more. So in other words, if I get paid $50, $75, $100, $500 an hour, why am I doing $15 an hour work? Why am I doing $10 an hour work? Why am I doing $25 an hour work? Let me focus on the $500 an hour stuff and pay people to do those things and delegate it properly, which means setting them up for success so that I don't hand it to them and go, did you get it done? Did you get it done? Oh, you didn't? Okay, I'll take it back, which is what people do all the time. So if I can set other people up for success and I can focus on the big dollar stuff, then I can have a greater balance between that and my personal life. Otherwise, I try and accomplish everything. I get frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. I get in this leadership crazy cycle and I don't know what to do. And I can't figure out why I can't make any of this work.
We hear that a lot from other guests too, that chaos seems to be the rule of life, email, texts, Instagram, Twitter, and something they've all talked about is an essential component to having control of your time is to plan it out. So how can lawyers successfully plan out their time in advance and stick to it, which seems to be a very difficult thing to do,
right?
And not get caught up putting out the latest fire or answering the latest email?
Yeah. So you guys have noticed, I'm sure, that we have become the most narcissistic society ever.
I knew you were going to say that.
So let's talk about me for a second.
I was going to try and take it into my area, but Chris, so you are the guest.
There you go. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? So we spend so much time. My cell phone. I had this concept for a long time now. I've been on cell phones since the day they used to light your ears on fire because they just were, a brick that just burns you up. I hate them, but they are a tool for me to use. My phone lives face down. It lives face down because here's what I understand that most people do not. My phone is for my personal convenience, not everybody else's. So folks who text me or call me understand that if it's business time and it's not business related, you're probably not getting a response at all because it's not my focus right now. I'm focused on the most important things that I need to get done in this day. I believe this business is God's business, and I believe that I'm operating it for Him. And so my job is to do the best I can. So I don't spend ridiculous time on social media. I don't spend ridiculous time on Instagram. I don't spend time on those things. Why? Because I don't need to. It's so distracting when you get caught up in junk that has literally nothing to do with your day and the things that you're trying to accomplish, right? So for me, it's all about changing lives. If I spend a half hour focusing, scrolling through a Facebook feed, that's a half hour I lost, or I could have changed lives. So for me, I've got people that do my social. I have deleted most of the social stuff off of my phone, except for the business stuff, so that I actually respond on the business stuff. If it's going to be a personal thing, maybe I'll jump on it on the weekend, maybe give it 10 minutes, but I don't focus on it. I just don't. So I remove that kind of junk from my life. And the way that I plan out my time is literally, once again, I killed the leadership crazy cycle a long time ago. I don't do things that I should not be doing. I'm not spending my time in administrative stuff that I could pay somebody for. I am not spending time on things that I should have delegated, but I'm holding on to and it's stressing the crap out of me because it has to get done and I haven't taught somebody else to do it. My days are spent on helping people. I spend time in coaching. I spend time in doing events. I spend time in creating the content that I need to create that's going to change somebody's life. I don't spend time in the admin. And the reason why is because I've done a great job making other people successful. So when I look at my day, it is literally, now I spend a lot of time in what's called a sauna. That not only is our company we use for all of our projects and everything like that, but that's also my to-do list has not been on paper for a while. It's been stuck in this Asana app because I can use it on my phone. I can use it on my computer. And I'm constantly reprioritizing what's the most important thing that I focus on right now. So that's what my day looks like. So chaos doesn't rule my life. I actually live where now, once in a great while, something chaotic pops up, as opposed to where it used to be chaos was the day. Now it's just like, hey, the day goes great. Things go well. We accomplish a whole ton of stuff. And then once in a great while, the unknown pops up. Oh, well, we couldn't have expected that. Let's go handle it. So one of the things people hear all the time in our strat plan program is solve the problem. So when something does pop up, solve the problem. Don't look at this as, oh, I've got 17 different chaotic things I've got to deal with today. This is just one more thing. You shouldn't have those. If you've set things up correctly, then chaos does not rule your life. Instead, you're more focused on what are the important things I do? And again, like I say, one of the things I talk about is, hey, take a look at your salary and take a look at the things you're doing. How do we get the things that are well less than what you're being paid for? How do we get that off your plate to somebody else so you can plan out your day to solve the best things? Does all that make sense?
It does.
Oh my God. Well, I could just see a manager going through the snacks and alphabetizing them and being like, Christ, people, can we please keep the graham crackers next to the hash browns? And you're like, you need to go away, man.
Right.
Like, you have to go. Like, aren't you supposed to be on a yacht or something? Like, you're losing your mind about the snack bar. But anyway, Paul, you had a follow-up question.
I do. I just wanted to highlight, I think that's a really great point you made, Chris, about these things being tools that should help you and should serve you, not so much because, again, like back in my old role, I very much felt dictated by who was hitting me on Skype, who was messaging me. That was very much like, okay, well, how do I handle this? How do I handle that? As opposed to being like, wait a minute, how do I turn this around and make this to things that I can use to help me delegate, to help me lead these things out? So I just wanted to really highlight, that's a really great thing that I think everybody could take a look with their phone, because there's this really prevalent attitude of, I sent you a text, you didn't get back to me in 5 minutes. That's rude. I think what you're saying, and I like it a lot, is it's kind of rude of you to presume that in the first place.
There's a great book called Time Traps by Todd Duncan. Todd put that out. Geez, I took a team that I had probably 15 years ago through that book. And back then, what I was teaching people is get rid of the notifications, get rid of the things that keep popping up. So if you opened up my phone right now, there is like, the little red dot that tells you how many messages and all that stuff. I think there is one thing on my phone that shows that. Two things. Probably if somebody called and if somebody sent the text. Right. All the apps turned off. All the notifications turned off. My phone does not light up. And one of the things I tell my team, because it's stuck in our brains, whenever we're in meetings, if somebody puts their phone on the table, I will ask them to turn it over. Because here's what will happen. We will be talking and their phone lights up. Where do my eyes go? Straight to their phone. And it drives me nuts. I'm like, I don't even want to know what's on you. I don't care who sent you a text. I don't care what's going on, but it's distracting to me. So back then, 15 years ago, I told my team, guys, instant message is for instant messaging. So in other words, if you don't need an instant answer, don't send me an instant message. Don't text me. Don't use the internal IM. Don't do any of that stuff, because I'm busting it. You send me an instant message. That's the one thing that does show up on my computer because it's for instant messages. And so it pops up and says, hey, you got an instant message. I click it open and you're asking me what I'm doing for lunch today. You just stopped my momentum right there. So I tell them, if you need an answer from somebody and you can wait up to 2 hours, send it in an email. Don't screw around with instant message. Turn off your email notifications. The little thing that goes through, the little ding, the little number, all that, turn them off. Work, and then set times for you to go check your emails. Now, some people have to, email is, they live out of it like it's urgency or it's let me say it's importance. Sometimes urgency isn't important at all, but it's important. That's totally different. But for most everybody else, you can turn off those notifications. And because all it does is it stops you when it comes across your screen and says you got an email from Frank. All of a sudden, you got to go click on Frank, and it's a cat playing a piano on YouTube. Waste of time, right?
Well, I mean, everybody has a different definition of waste of time.
That's true.
Yeah, that cat is talented.
That's really good. Then okay, that was worth it in my day. But it depends on what the cat's playing on the piano. So this is what I do. I told my salespeople, and a couple of them actually got a little upset with me. I said, here's what I want you to do. In the morning, when you walk in the door, I want you to shut off your phones. Put your phones on Do Not Disturb. 15 minutes, go through your emails, anything that came in overnight. If you need more than 15 minutes to check your overnight emails, I'm betting there's a whole lot of personal stuff in there, because it shouldn't be overnight client stuff that's takes you more than 15 minutes, unless it's just a complicated problem. But put your phone on Do Not Disturb, check your emails, then shut your email down. Get on the phone and dial for 2 hours, hour and a half, whatever. Dial straight, call, talk to people, sell, then come back, open your emails. You can check them again between, the morning and lunch. Few minutes, close it down, get back, call. If you want to check it before lunch, that's great, but definitely check it by the time you come back after lunch. Do the same exact thing. So you're checking your emails 5 to 6 times a day. The rest of the time is selling. They looked at me like I was a colossal idiot. They're like, you got to be kidding. And I'm like, you're going to do it, period. So just do it. Just make it happen. If you don't understand what I'm saying, then just do it. We got to just do this and try it. By the afternoon, everybody on my sales team had come to me and said, this is genius. I feel like I've got great momentum. And so those are the things I put in place so that they're not distracted. They get to do the thing that's important. It's the same thing for leaders. If you're stuck in all of these distractions, I've got an open door policy. If my door is open, you can come in. When the door is closed, set an appointment. So I can handle things during certain periods of time, but other times I just got to buckle down and get things done. So don't distract me. Remove the distractions. You'll be amazed at how much you get done.
Well, so we could keep going, but unfortunately we're out of time. But Chris, tell the audience how they can learn more about you and these accountability groups. Give us your contact details.
So ChrisLoCurto.com, LoCurto. And we've got all the information there. There's the 3 major areas that we focus with are Next Level Mastermind, our strat plans, which is for the company leadership. The Next Level Masterminds is for leaders and business owners. And then we also do Next Level Life, which is for individuals that help people to discover all the things that are holding them back in any one of those areas. And the great thing is we give them the tools and the plan on how to solve those things going forward. So that's how they can get more of us.
Five questions we ask everyone.
Here we go, Chris, with the cleverly named 5 questions we ask everyone.
Okay.
Number 1, what was the last book you read?
I am constantly always in the Bible, but the last book I read was called Abba's Child, Brennan Manning.
Okay.
Stunning, life-changing book.
Cool. All right, everybody, go get it. Number 2, what is your favorite place?
Oh, like vacation spot?
It can be anything. It could be a destination. It could be somewhere where you just are, where you feel best every day. And it's open to you.
I was born in Sonoma and raised in Lake Tahoe. Those are 2 places I try to get back to every year. They give me life. So I will go back to the Napa Valley. I will go back to Truckee is where I'm from in North Lake Tahoe. Those are places that just give me life. If I'm going, I couldn't pick one over the other.
Nice.
I love them both. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful out there too. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
So I'm a big podcaster. Ravi Zacharias is one that I'm always learning more about apologetics and trying to be able to have an apologetic for my belief system. But I'm also huge into health. And when I say health, I mean like functional medicine. So there's Kara Fitzgerald. There's a new guy that I'm just learning, Mark Hyman. So these are actually health things that I focus heavily on, because it's also a big part of what I help people with is, it's not just going and leading a business. If you don't take care of your health, then the business will destroy your health. The stress will destroy your health. So those are things that I'm, Ravi, Kara, Mark, those are people that I'm listening to right now. And then when I can, if I can get more drive time in, then I'll usually switch to like an audiobook or something like that.
Nice. Okay. Number 4, if you were stranded on a desert island and could pick only one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
That's what I'm saying. That we turn the heat up on you, Chris. We turn the heat up.
Do we consider wine a condiment?
I think the judges will accept that.
But I'm going to say wine. It's going to be some vino.
Excellent. All right, we've made it to the end. Number 5, after a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
So for me, what I've discovered is that it depends on what's going on. If my brain is stuck in creativity all day long, which when, we do some events here, we'll bring in a whole leadership team and spend, 4 days ripping the business apart and giving them tools of how to make it better. There's so much creativity. I just need something to deaden my brain. I don't need to think. But what I have discovered is if it's just a regular day and I need to relax, or it's been a tough week, if I just spend time sitting, listening to, good music, reading a book, growing my brain, putting more stuff into me, for me, spending time in prayer, having a good glass of wine, and I mean a good glass of wine, then those are the kind of things that relax me and help rejuvenate me. But if I go for a good walk, if I get a little exercise in, the things that aren't being stuck behind a computer, being stuck behind a television, being stuck behind, spending time in bad conversations, there's no point in all that. When I need to rejuvenate, I need to get life back into me. So putting stuff in my brain, spending time relaxing, listening to good music, great conversations. If I can have great conversations with friends, those are all things that rebuild me.
Yeah, well said. All right. Well, that's it, everyone. 5 questions we asked Chris. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
For show notes, links, and info, follow us on Twitter or Facebook, or go to www.consultwebs.com/lawsomepodcast. Be sure to leave us a review and ratings on iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawsome.